Shri Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashita Rashata Shrimad Shri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Vishnu Vishnupad Ashita Rashata Shrimad Shri Bhakti Anta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Vishnu Mahabhagavat Shri Gorakshara Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Vishnu Shri Satchara Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitil Vishnu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Nupriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal Vrinda ki jai. Nama Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishya Bharata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. It's annoying, the comments aren't showing up. As you can see here, it says it's still loading. Let me just try refreshing this page, and let's see if the comments will show up then. Reload site. Yes. There. Okay, now I think comments will show up. Seems like the connection isn't as stable today, so let me know if it stops working. All right. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Vedanta Narayana Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam dvaipayano virahakatara ajuhavo putreti tanmayataya taravo bhinedu stang sarvabhuta hridayam munimanatosmi narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet. Shrinvatang Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Ridantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Surit Satam Nashta Prayesh Babadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvang Unayamang Charanantikam Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshai Shibdashtakamadirtaranga madhe Kripa maitam sharanam prapanna Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranams Indira Mataji, and it just says Facebook user here, but so Dandavat Pranams, Radhe Radhe Gargaraj, Dandavat Pranams Madhavi Didi. Alright. So, this chapter has been so long. So Uttanapad doesn't welcome Dhruva. He doesn't allow him to sit on his lap. And envious and proud Suruchi chastises him. Then Dhruva becomes super angry. He goes to his mother Suniti. And Suniti directs Dhruva to worship the Lord. She says, "Don't wish ill fortune for others. Suruchi's words are true. Worship the Lord like Brahma and Manu, for no one else can extinguish your distress." Is the background noise too loud? Haribo Madhuri Didi. It's over. The kirtan's over. No one else can extinguish your distress. Then Narad, he's able to understand that that Dhruva has left his home to go worship Narayan, and so then Narad approaches Dhruva, and he tests him. He says, "Don't be affected by honor and dishonor. One who understands the law of karma is satisfied whatever comes by destiny. The process advised by your mother is difficult. Even mystic yogis failed, so do not even try. By endurance and right attitude, one surpasses all miseries." And then Dhruva says, "I'm a Kshatriya. Maybe this is like some good advice for Brahmins, but maybe he didn't say it exactly like that. But and then Dhruva expresses his ambitious goal, and Narad, he says, "Please advise an honest path to attain the most exalted position in the three worlds." Even he wants a position even higher, a more exalted position than even his father and his grandfather. Or did he say grandfather and great-grandfather? I think he said grandfather and great-grandfather. So that means Swayambhuva Manu and Brahma himself. So then Narad says to go to Madhuvan, practice Ashtanga Yoga, meditate on the Lord's form, chant the Dvadashakshar mantra, and worship the deity. And so then Dhruva goes to the forest and starts his practice. And then Narad, he meets with Uttanapad and pacifies him. First he asks Uttanapad, "Why are you feeling so morose?" And then Uttanapad, he feels regretful for all his unkind dealings. And then Narad informs of Dhruva's safety and future success. There's no need to worry about Dhruva Maharaj. And then there's an explanation of Dhruva's severe austerities and meditation. So let's read from that point. Okay, in here. Where is that? Let's just see, because I might have gotten it a bit wrong. Whatever you've explained for attainment of, Dhruva says, whatever you've explained for attainment of peace and is certainly a very good instruction, but I'm not very submissive due to my kshatriya temperament. Therefore, your valuable instructions do not stand in my heart that has been pierced by Suruchi's harsh words. I desire the most exalted position in the three worlds, one which has not been attained by my forefathers, or others, even Brahma. Okay. So then he gave Dhruva this advice. Oh yeah, and the Dwadash Akshar mantra. So he gives this advice how to worship and meditate on the word of Lord, and he gives them the Dwadash Akshar mantra, which means the 12 syllable mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, and then Dhruva then circumambulated Narad, offers obeisances, and went to Madhuvan, which is always imprinted with the footprints of Krishna. Then Narad meets with Uttanapad and pacifies him. After Dhruva left, Narad went to meet King Uttanapad. After being welcomed properly, Narad spoke as follows. O king, your face is withered. Have you been thinking of something for a long time? Have you been hampered in following Dharma, Artha, and Kam? Narad did not inquire about moksha, but only regarding the state management, which is meant for the advancement of Dharma, Artha, and Kam. Generally, people engaged in such affairs are not interested in moksha. Then Uttanapad regrets his unkind dealings with Dhruva. I am henpecked, Strainena, and merciless, Akuruna Atmana, and have banished my young devotee son and his mother. My son is unprotected in the forest. He might be tired, hungry, lying down, and the wolves might have attacked him. I was conquered by my wife. See my cruelty. Most vile, I did not welcome my son when he tried to climb on my lap. Then Narad says, do not be aggrieved about your son. He is well protected by the Lord, and though his greatness is yet unknown, his fame will soon be spread throughout the universe. Your son is very competent. After performing tasks difficult even for demigods, he will soon return home and will spread your reputation. Note, the most difficult task in life is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Dhruva Maharaj was going to do that with his determination. After hearing from Narad, Uttanapad gave up interest in his wealthy kingdom and simply began to think of his son. At Madhuvan, Dhruva took his bath in the Yamuna and observed fasting that night. Then he worshipped the Lord as instructed by Narad Muni. In the first month, Dhruva was sustaining himself on kapita fruits and berries, and he'd only take those once every 3 days. In the second month, Dhruva sustained himself on dry grass and leaves, and he only ate those dry grass and leaves once every 6 days. Then on the third month, he sustained himself on water and only drank water once every 9 days. And on the fourth month, he sustained himself on air, and he'd only take in air, take a breath, every 12 days. By the fifth month, Dhruva controlled his breath and mind, stood motionless on one foot like a pillar, and meditated on the Lord's form without diversion. Now we're going to read about the effects of Dhruva Maharaj's meditation. Okay, so. Adharam Maharadinam Pradhana Purusheshwaram Brahmadharaya Manasya. Once again. Trayolokascha. When Dhruva Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the total material creation, and who is the master of all living entities, the three worlds began to tremble. Purport. In this verse, purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the particular word Brahma is very significant. Brahman refers to one who not only is the greatest, but has the potency to expand to an unlimited extent. How is it possible for Dhruva Maharaj to capture Brahma within his heart? This question has been very nicely answered by Jiva Goswami. He says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of Brahman, for since he comprises everything material and spiritual, there cannot be anything greater than he. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the Supreme Godhead says, I am the resting place of Brahman. Many persons, especially the Mayavadi philosophers, consider Brahman to the biggest, all-expanding substance. But according to this verse and other Vedic literatures, such as Bhagavad Gita, the resting place of Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the resting place of the sunshine is the sun globe. Srila Jiva Goswami therefore says that since the transcendental form of the Lord is the seed of all greatness, he is the Supreme Brahman. Since the Supreme Brahman was situated in the heart of Dhruva Maharaj, he became heavier than the heaviest, and therefore everything trembled in all three worlds. Sorry, somebody is knocking on my door. I'm just going to ignore it. And therefore everything trembled in all the three worlds and in the spiritual world. The Mahat Tattva, or the sum total of the material creation, is to be understood to be the ultimate end of all universes, including all the living entities therein. Brahma is the resort of the Mahat Tattva, which includes all material and spiritual entities. It is described in this connection that the Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is the master of both Pradhan and Purush. Pradhan means subtle matter, such as ether. Purush means the spiritual spark living entities who are entangled in that subtle material existence. These may also be described as Para Prakriti and Apara Prakriti, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, being the controller of both the Prakritis, is thus the master of Pradhan and Purush. In the Vedic hymns also, the Supreme Brahman is described as Anta Pravishta Shasta. This indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is controlling everything and entering into everything. The Brahma Samhita 535 further confirms this. Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam. He has entered not only the universes, but even the atom. In Bhagavad Gita 10:42, Krishna also says, Vishta Bhyaham Idam Kritsnam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead controls everything by entering into everything. By associating constantly with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart, Dhruva Maharaj naturally became equal to the greatest, Brahman, by his association, and thus became the heaviest, and the entire universe trembled. In conclusion, a person who always concentrates on the transcendental form of Krishna within his heart can very easily strike the whole world with wonder at his activities. This is the perfection of yoga performance, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 6:47. Yoginam api sarvesham. Of all yogis, the bhakti yogi who thinks of Krishna always within his heart and engages in his loving transcendental service is the topmost. Ordinary yogis can exhibit wonderful material activities, known as Ashtasiddhi, eight kinds of yogic perfection. But a devotee of the Lord can surpass these perfections by performing activities which can make the whole world tremble. Sorry guys, my mind is distracted because there's somebody outside my door and they're knocking on it and are waiting outside, so just give me a second. I'll be right back. Krishna. Sorry about that. They're cleaning outside my room and I have a bunch of stuff out there. Okay. Dandavat pranams Prajumna Prabhu. Yadaikapadena sapartivarpaghas tasto tarangushta nipidita mahi nanatma tatrardham ibhendradishtita tariva savye tarata pade pade. As Dhruva Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, the pressure of his big toe pushed down just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with his every step. Purport. The most significant expression in this verse is Partivarpaka, the son of the king. When Dhruva Maharaj was at home, although he was a king's son, he was prevented from getting on the lap of his father. But when he became advanced in self-realization or devotional service, by the pressure of his toe, he could push down the whole earth. That is the difference between ordinary consciousness and Krishna consciousness. In ordinary consciousness, a king's son may be refused something, even by his father. But when the same person becomes fully Krishna conscious within his heart, he can push down the earth with the pressure of his toe. One cannot argue, how is it that Dhruva Maharaj, who was prevented from getting up on the lap of his father, could press down the whole earth? This argument is not very much appreciated by the learned, for it is an example of Nagna Matrika logic. By this logic, by the Nagna Matrika logic, one would think that because his mother in her childhood was naked, she should remain naked even when she is grown up. The stepmother of Dhruva Maharaj might have been thinking in a similar way. Since she had refused to allow him to get on the lap of his father, how could Dhruva perform such wonderful activities as pressing down the whole earth? She must have been very surprised when she learned that Dhruva Maharaj, by concentrating constantly on the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, could press down the entire earth like an elephant who presses down the boat on which it is loaded. Tasmena bidhayati vishvam atmano dvaram nirudyasum ananyathiya loka niruchvasa nipidita brisham salokapala sharanam yayur harim. When Dhruva Maharaj became practically one in heaviness with... When Dhruva Maharaj became practically one in heaviness with Lord Vishnu, the total consciousness, due to his fully concentrating and closing the holes of his body, the total universal breathing became choked up, and all the greatest demigods in the planetary system felt suffocated, and thus took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sorry, I said greatest. All the great demigods in the planetary system felt suffocated, and they took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. When hundreds of persons are sitting in an airplane, although they remain individual units, they each share in the total force of the airplane, which runs at thousands of miles per hour. Similarly, when each energy is identified with the service of the total energy, the unit energy becomes as powerful as the total energy. As explained in the previous verse, Dhruva Maharaj, because of his spiritual advancement, became almost the total heaviness, and thus pressed down the whole earth. Moreover, by such spiritual power, his unit body became the total body of the universe. Thus, when he closed the holes of his unit body to firmly concentrate his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the units of the universe, namely all the living entities, including the big demigods, felt the pressure of suffocation, as if their breathing were being choked. Therefore, they all took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because they were perplexed as to what had happened. This example of Dhruva Maharaj's closing the holes of his personal body and thereby closing the breathing holes of the total universe clearly indicates that a devotee, by his personal devotional service, can influence all the people of the whole world to become devotees of the Lord. If there is only one pure devotee in pure Krishna consciousness, he can change the total consciousness of the world into Krishna consciousness. This is not very difficult to understand if we study the behavior of Dhruva Maharaj. Deva uchu naivam vidamo bhagavan pranarodam chara charasya kila sattvadhamna videhitanno vrijinar vimoksham prapta vayam tvam sharanam sharanyam. The demigod said, Dear Lord, you are the refuge of all moving and non-moving living entities. We feel all living entities to be suffocating, their breathing processes choked up. We have never experienced such a thing. Since you are the ultimate shelter of all surrendered souls, we have therefore approached you. Kindly save us from this danger. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj's influence, attained by executing devotional service unto the Lord, was felt even by the demigods, who had never before experienced such a situation. Because of Dhruva Maharaj's controlling his breathing, the entire universal breathing process was choked. It was by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that material entities cannot breathe, whereas spiritual entities are able to breathe. Material entities are products of the Lord's external energy, whereas spiritual entities are products of the Lord's internal energy. The demigods approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of both kinds of entities, in order to know why their breathing was choked. The Supreme Lord is the ultimate goal for the solution to all problems within this material world. In the spiritual world, there are no problems, but the material world is always problematic. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of both the material and spiritual worlds, it is better to approach him in all problematic situations. Those who are devotees, therefore, have no problems in this material world. Vishvam Purna Sukhayate, Chaitanya Chandramrita. Devotees are free from all problems because they are fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For a devotee, everything in the world is very pleasing because he knows how to use everything in transcendental loving service of the Lord. Śrī Bhagavan ma bhaishtabalam tapaso duratyayam nirvartayashe pratiyata swadhama yato hiva prana niroda asir otana padir mai sangatatma. The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, My dear demigods, do not be perturbed by this. It is due to the severe austerity and full determination of the son of King Uttanapad, who is now fully absorbed in thought of me. He has obstructed the universal breathing process. You can safely return to your respective homes. I shall stop this boy and his severe acts of austerities, and you will be saved from this situation. Purport. Here one word, sangatatma, is misinterpreted by the Mayavadi philosophers, who say that the self of Dhruva Maharaj had become one with the Supreme Self, the Personality of Godhead. The Mayavadi philosophers want to prove by this word that the Supersoul and the individual soul become united in this way, and that after such unification, the individual soul has no separate existence. But here it is clearly said by the Supreme Lord that Dhruva Maharaj was so absorbed in meditation on the thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he himself, the universal consciousness, was attracted to Dhruva. In order to please the demigods, he wanted to go himself to Dhruva Maharaj to stop him from this severe austerity. The Mayavadi philosophers' conclusion that the supersoul and the individual soul become united is not supported by this statement. Rather, the supersoul, the personality of Godhead, wanted to stop Dhruva Maharaj from this severe austerity. By pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one pleases everyone, just as by watering the root of the tree, one satisfies every branch, twig, and leaf of the tree. If one can attract the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one naturally attracts the whole universe, because Krishna is the supreme cause of the universe. All the demigods were afraid of being totally vanquished by suffocation, but the personality of Godhead assured them that Dhruva Maharaj was a great devotee of the Lord and was not about to annihilate everyone in the universe. A devotee is never envious of other living entities. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 8th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Dhruva Maharaj Leaves Home for the Forest. And would you guys mind just giving me a few seconds to, they're cleaning outside my room, and I was cleaning my room yesterday, and I've moved out a ton of stuff, and it's all out there outside of my room, and I think it's getting in their way. And so I'm just going to move some things in. It will take me less than a minute. But one thing that's really cool is we have now completed the first book, the first part of the 4th canto, and now chapter 9 begins the second part. So now finally I get to use the book, because I was missing the first part of the 4th canto. I didn't have that book, so now I finally can, and I have all the pictures in here. Okay, give me 1 second. Never mind. It looks like they are not cleaning it out right now, so that's good. Let me share my screen again. Dhruva Maharaj returns home, chapter 9. And what verse are we reading up to? I think we're reading up to 8, is it? Where is it? We're reading up to, yes, verse 8. Okay, cool. Maitreya uvacha ta evam utsana bhaya urukrame kritva vanama prayayustivishtavam sahasra shirshapi tato gorutmata madhurvanam vritya didrikshaya gata. The great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the demigods were thus reassured by the personality of Godhead, they were freed from all fears, and after offering their obeisances, they returned to their heavenly planets. Then the Lord, who is none different from the Sahasra Shirsha incarnation, got on the back of Garuda and carried him to, Garuda, who carried him to the Madhuban forest to see his servant Dhruva. Purport. The word Sahasra Shirsha refers to the personality of Godhead known as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Although the Lord appeared as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, he has been described here as Sahasra Shirsha Vishnu because he is none different from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. According to Srila Sanatana Goswami and his Bhagavatamrita, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the Sahasra Shirsha personality of Godhead who appeared at that time was the incarnation known as Prishni Garbha. He created the planet known as Dhruva Loka for the habitation of Dhruva Maharaj. Sahasra Shirsha means 1,000 heads. It's interesting, huh? I was thinking Sahasra Shirsha was going to be referring to Ananta Shesh, but that wouldn't make sense anyways. But yeah, Sahasra Shirsha. Savaidya Yoga Vipakati Vraya Rit Parma Koshe Spuritam Tarit Prabham Tirohitam Sahasaiva Palakasya Pahistitam Tar Avastam Tadarsha. The form of the Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and in which Dhruva Maharaj, in his mature yogic process, was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared. Thus the Dhruva was perturbed, and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, He saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart. Purport. Because of his mature position in yogic meditation, Dhruva Maharaj was constantly observing the form of the personality of Godhead within his heart. But all of a sudden, when the Supreme Personality disappeared from his heart, he thought that he had lost him. Dhruva Maharaj was perturbed, but upon opening his eyes and breaking his meditation, he saw the same form of the Lord before him. In the Brahma Samhita 538, it is said, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. A saintly person who has developed love of Godhead by devotional service always sees that the Lord's transcendental form. He always sees the Lord's transcendental form of Shama Sundar. This Shama Sundar form of the Lord within the heart of a devotee is not imaginary. When a devotee becomes mature in his prosecution of devotional service, he sees face to face the same Shama Sundar he has thought of. The same Shama Sundar he has thought of during the entire course of his devotional service. Since the Supreme Lord is absolute, the form within the heart of the devotee, the form in the temple, and the original form in Vaikuntha, Vrindavan Dham, are all the same. They are non-different from one another. The form in the heart, the form in the temple, and the original form are all non-different. Tadarsanena gatasadvasakshita avandatangam vinamaya dandavat drigbhyam prapasyan prapibam ivar bhakash chumban iva sena bhujar iva shlisham. When Dhruva Maharaj saw his Lord just in front of him, he was greatly agitated and offered him obeisances in respect. He fell flat before him like a rod. And became absorbed in love of Godhead. Dhruva Maharaj in ecstasy looked upon the Lord as if he were drinking the Lord with his eyes, kissing the lotus feet of the Lord with his mouth, and embracing the Lord with his arms. Where does it say kissing the feet of the Lord? Oh, chumban. Yes, chumban. Purport. Naturally, when Dhruva Maharaj personally saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, he was very much agitated in awe and respect, and it appeared as if he were drinking the entire body of the Lord with his eyes. The devotee's love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so intense that he wants to kiss the lotus feet of the Lord constantly, and he wants to touch the tips of the toes of the Lord and constantly embrace his lotus feet. All these features of Dhruva Maharaj's bodily expression indicates that upon seeing the Lord face to face, he developed 8 kinds of transcendental ecstasy in his body. Satang vivakshantam atadvedam harir gyatvasya sarvasya chahridavastita kritanjalim brahma mayena kambuna pashparshabalam kripaya kapole. Although Dhruva Maharaj was a small boy, he wanted to offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in suitable language. But because he was inexperienced, he could not adjust himself immediately. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, could understand Dhruva Maharaj's awkward position. Out of his causeless mercy, he touched his conch shell to the forehead of Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. Purport. Every devotee wants to chant the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Devotees are always interested in hearing about the Lord's transcendental qualities, and they are always eager to glorify these qualities. But sometimes they feel inconvenienced by humbleness. The personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, specifically gives a devotee intelligence to describe him. It is therefore understood that when a devotee writes or speaks about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his words are dictated by the Lord from within. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter. To those who constantly engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, from within, dictates what to do next in order to serve him. When Dhruva Maharaj felt hesitant, not knowing how to describe the Lord for want of sufficient experience, The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, touched his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead, and he was transcendentally inspired. This transcendental inspiration is called Brahma Maya, because when one is thus inspired, the sound he produces exactly corresponds to the sound vibration of the Vedas. This is not the ordinary sound vibration of this material world. Therefore, the sound vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra, although presented in the ordinary alphabet, should not be taken as mundane or material. Savaita daiva pratipaditam girang daivim parigyata paratmanirnaya tang bhakti bhavo grinad asatvaram parishrutoru shravasam Dhruvakshiti. At that time, Dhruva Maharaj became perfectly aware of the Vedic conclusion and understood the absolute truth and his relationship with all living entities. In accordance with the line of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, whose fame is widespread, Dhruva, who in the future would receive a planet which would never be annihilated, even during the time of dissolution, offered his deliberate and conclusive prayers. Purport. There are many important items to be considered in this verse. First of all, the relationship between the absolute truth and the relative material and spiritual energies is here understood by a student who has complete knowledge of the Vedic literature. Dhruva Maharaj never went to any school or academic teacher to learn the Vedic conclusion, but because of his devotional service to the Lord, as soon as the Lord appeared and touched his forehead with his conch shell, automatically the entire Vedic conclusion was revealed to him. That is the process of understanding Vedic literature. One cannot understand it simply by academic learning. The Vedas indicates that only to one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, as well as in the spiritual master, is the Vedic conclusion revealed. This is important. I want to share this in our shloka reading, our shloka memorizing group. Okay. The example of Dhruva Maharaj is that he engaged himself in devotional service to the Lord according to the order of his spiritual master, Narad Muni. As a result of his rendering such devotional service with great determination and austerity, the personality of Godhead personally manifested himself before him. Dhruva was only a child. He wanted to offer nice prayers to the Lord, but because he lacked sufficient knowledge, he hesitated. But by the mercy of the Lord, as soon as the Lord's conch shell touched his forehead, he became completely aware of the Vedic conclusion. That conclusion is based on proper understanding of the difference between Jiva and Paramatma, the individual soul and the supersoul. The individual soul is forever a servant of the supersoul, and therefore his relationship with the supersoul is to offer service. That is called Bhakti Yoga, or Bhakti Bhav. Dhruva Maharaj offered his prayers to the Lord, not in the way of the impersonalist philosophers, but as a devotee. Therefore, it is clearly said here, Bhakti Bhava. The only prayers worth offering are those offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose reputation is spread far and wide. Dhruva Maharaj wanted to have the kingdom of his father, but his father refused even to allow him to get on his lap. In order to fulfill his desire, the Lord had already created a planet known as the pole star, Dhruvaloka, which was never to be annihilated even at the time of the dissolution of the universe. Dhruva Maharaj attained this perfection not by acting hastily, but by patiently executing the order of his spiritual master, and therefore he became so successful that he saw the Lord face to face. Now he is further enabled by the causeless mercy of the Lord to offer fitting prayers to the Lord. To glorify or offer prayers unto the Supreme, one needs the Lord's mercy. One cannot write to glorify the Lord unless one is endowed with his causeless mercy. Dhruva uvacha yonta pravishya mama vacham imam prasuptam sanjivayatya kila shakti dara sadhamna Anyangscha hasta charana shravana tvagadin prana namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. We're reading the first. Dhruva makes there's 11 verses of Dhruva Maharaj's prayers, and we're reading the first 3. Dhruva Maharaj said, "My dear Lord, you are all powerful. After entering within me, you have enlivened all my sleeping senses, my hands, legs, ears, touch sensation, life force, and especially my power of speech. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you." Purport. Dhruva Maharaj could understand very easily the difference between his condition before and after attaining spiritual realization and seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He could understand that his life force and activities had been sleeping. Unless one comes to the spiritual platform, his bodily limbs, mind, and other facilities within the body are understood to be sleeping. Unless one is spiritually situated, all his activities are taken as a dead man's activities, or ghostly activities. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has composed a song in which he addresses himself, "O living entity, get up! How long shall you sleep in the lap of Maya? Now you have the opportunity of possessing a human form of body. Now try to get up and realize yourself." The Vedas also declare, "Get up, get up." And that song is, Jeev Jago, Gora Chandra Bole, Kota Nitra Jao, Maya Ishachira Kole. The Vedas also declare, "Get up, get up. You have the opportunity, the boon of the human form of life. Now realize yourself." These are the Vedic injunctions. Dhruva Maharaj actually experienced that upon enlightenment of his senses on the spiritual platform, he could understand the essence of Vedic instruction, that the Supreme Godhead is the Supreme Person. He is not impersonal. Dhruva Maharaj could immediately understand this fact. He was aware that for a very long time he was practically sleeping, and he felt the impetus to glorify the Lord according to the Vedic conclusion. A mundane person cannot offer any prayer or glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he has no realization of the Vedic conclusion. This is also an important point. Oh my God, I want to save that too. Give me a second. Actually, no, I'm going to use Scrivener, I mean. New document. There, this one, and this one now. A mundane person cannot offer any prayer. It's a really important point. Okay. When Dhruva Maharaj therefore found this difference within himself, he could immediately understand that it was because the causeless mercy of the Lord. He offered obeisances to the Lord with great respect and reverence, completely understanding that the Lord's favor was upon him. This spiritual enlivenment of Dhruva Maharaj's senses and mind was due to the action of the internal potency of the Lord. In this verse, therefore, the word Swadhamna means by spiritual energy. Spiritual enlightenment is possible by the mercy of the spiritual energy of the Lord. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is first addressed to the spiritual energy of the Lord, Hare. This spiritual energy acts when a living entity fully surrenders and accepts his position as an eternal servitor. When a person places himself at the disposal or order of the Supreme Lord, that is called Sevanmukha. At that time, the spiritual energy gradually reveals the Lord to him. Without revelation by the spiritual energy, one is unable to offer prayers while glorifying the Lord. Any amount of philosophical speculation or poetic expression by mundane persons is still considered to be the action and reaction of the material energy. When one is actually enlivened by the spiritual energy, all his senses become purified, and he engages only in the service of the Lord. At that time, his hands, legs, ears, tongue, mind, genitals, everything engage in the service of the Lord. Such an enlightened devotee no longer has any material activities, nor has he any interest in being materially engaged. This process of purifying the senses and engaging them in the service of the Lord is known as bhakti, or devotional service. In the beginning, the senses are engaged by the direction of the spiritual master and Shastra, and after realization, when the same senses are purified, the engagement continues. The difference is that in the beginning, the senses are engaged in a mechanical way, but after realization, they are engaged in spiritual understanding. Ekastameva Bhagavan idamatma shaktya maya kyayorugunaya mahadada shesham shrishtvanu purushastarasar guneshu naneva darushu vibhavasuvad vibhasi. My Lord, you are the Supreme One, but by your different energies, you appear differently in the spiritual and material worlds. You create the total energy of the material worlds by your external potency, and after creation, you enter within the material world as the Supersoul. You are the Supreme Person, and through the temporary modes of material nature, you create varieties of manifestation, just as fire, entering into wood of different shapes, burns brilliantly in different varieties. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj realized that the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Personality of Godhead, acts through his different energies, not that it becomes void or impersonal, and thus becomes all-pervading. The Mayavadi philosopher thinks that the Absolute Truth, being spread throughout the cosmic manifestation, has no personal form. But here Dhruva Maharaj, upon realization of the Vedic conclusion, says, "You are spread all over the cosmic manifestation by your energy. This energy is basically spiritual, but because it acts in the material world temporarily, it is called Maya, or illusory energy. In other words, for everyone but the devotees, the Lord's energy acts as external energy." Dhruva Maharaj could understand this fact very nicely, and he could understand also that the energy and the energetic are one and the same. The energy cannot be separated from the energetic. The identity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the feature of Paramatma, or Supersoul, is admitted herein. His original spiritual energy enlivens the material energy, and thus the dead body appears to have life force. Voidist philosophers think that under certain material conditions, the symptom of life occur in the material body, but the fact is that the material body cannot act on its own. Even a machine needs separate energy, electricity, stream, etc. It is stated in this verse that the material energy acts in varieties of material bodies, just as fire burns differently in different wood according to the size and quality of the wood. In the case of devotees, the same energy is transformed into spiritual energy. This is possible because the energy is originally spiritual, not material. As it is said, Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta. The original energy inspires a devotee, and thus he engages all his bodily limbs in the service of the Lord. The same energy, as external potency, engages the ordinary non-devotees in material activities for sense enjoyment. We should mark the difference between Maya and Swadharma. For devotees, the Swadharma acts, whereas in the case of non-devotees, the Maya energy acts. Tadataya vayuna vayunayedam achashta vishvam supta prabhuta ivanata bhavat prapanna tasyapavargya sharanam tava paramulam vismaryate kritavida katamartha bandho. O my Master, Lord Brahma is fully surrendered unto you. In the beginning you gave him knowledge, and thus he could see and understand the entire universe, just as a person awakens from sleep and visualizes his immediate duties. You are the only shelter of all persons who desire liberation, and you are the friend of all who are distressed. How, therefore, can a learned person who has perfect knowledge ever forget you? Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be forgotten, even for a moment, by his surrendered devotees. The devotee understands that the Lord's causeless mercy is beyond his estimation. He cannot know how much he is benefited by the grace of the Lord. The more a devotee engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, the more encouragement is supplied by the energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that to those who are constantly engaged in devotional service with love and affection, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives intelligence from within, and thus they may make further progress. Being so encouraged, the devotee can never forget at any moment the Personality of Godhead. He always feels obliged to him for having achieved increased power in devotional service by his grace. Saintly persons like Sanak, Sanatan, and Lord Brahma were able to see the entire universe by the mercy of the Lord, through knowledge of the Lord. By the mercy of the Lord, they were able to see the entire universe through knowledge of the Lord. The example is given that a person may apparently abstain from sleep all day, but as long as he is not spiritually enlightened, he is actually sleeping. He may sleep at night and perform his duties in the daytime, but as long as he does not come to the platform of working in spiritual enlightenment, he is considered to be always sleeping. A devotee, therefore, never forgets the benefits derived from the Lord. The Lord is addressed here as Arthabandhu, which means friend of the distressed. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, after many, many births of executing severe austerities in search of knowledge, one comes to the point of real knowledge and becomes wise when one surrenders into the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mayavadi philosopher who does not surrender unto the Supreme Person is understood to be lacking in real knowledge. The devotee in perfect knowledge cannot forget his obligation to the Lord at any moment. Okay, so tomorrow we will continue Dhruva's prayers. What are we reading till tomorrow? I use this is how I actually figure out how much to read every day, is I copy and paste from this file into here, and then I count how many words. So today we read 5,705 words, and tomorrow we're going to read 6,195 words, so I really need to start on time tomorrow. But we're going to read up to verse 22. So we'll read the rest of Dhruva Maharaj's prayers, and then the Lord bestows benedictions to Dhruva Maharaj. The Lord, I award your material desires along with prema, and I also award you Dhruva Lok, ruling for 36,000 years without old age. These are the first two benedictions. Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
It's 8 o'clock.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki jai. Nitilapa Vishnu Vishnupar Ashtotara Shata Shishimachila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki jai. Nitilapa Vishnu Vishnupar Ashtotara Shata Shishimachila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nitilapa Vishnu Vishnupar Ashtotara Shata Shishimachila Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitilapa Vishnu Vishnupar Ashtotara Shata Shishimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nitilapa Vishnu Vishnupar Ashtotara Shata Shishimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki jai. Nitilapa Vishnu Maha-Bhagavat Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitilapa Vishnu Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitilapa Vishnu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dashagunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Rishi Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय. श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जाय. सर्व अभिष्ट विदात गिरिराज महाराज की जाय. श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जाय. श्री मन देवी गंगा देवी की जाय. श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाय. श्री भक्ति देवी की जाय. श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जाय. श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जाय. श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जाय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय. समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय. श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. जय ध्रुव महाराज की जय. जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय. वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवाय कृष्ण भक्ति प्रददेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. धन्यवाद. प्रणाम. See you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe.